Welcome to my apiary. It's December the 7th, 2021. It's pretty cool out here. It's about minus 14 C. I had a situation a couple days ago, I don't know what it was, 2 or 3 days ago, that was caused by very windy conditions. And generally in the winter, once we get a bit of snow, you can see we really don't have much snow yet. In the winter, I'll bank the snow up against these doors, so it'll get about that high. You know, it could be a couple feet high. To block the light, those doors are in terrible condition, so the light gets through. So I'll block the light as best I can, but also block the wind. What happened a few days ago was very windy, and I believe the wind was coming from this direction, and it was blowing in under these, this way, blowing in under the doors, that way. And I noticed that from the house because of my monitoring system. But the monitoring system was showing that the barn had reached 6C, which the set point's at 4. So I came out here to see what was going on, and I'll go in there and show you what's going on. You can see that fan is going on right now, but I'll go in there and I'll show you kind of what I discovered. Got the red lights on already. Okay, so you can see the light infiltration, and where there's light, there's wind. When there's wind. Okay, this is interesting. This is not what I was going to show you, but see the CO is 121.25. The set point is 2,000 on that. This fan is running on low speed. So what's happening is it's cold enough outside that the natural shedding of heat of the building is taking care of the heat from the bees. So what happens then is the air quality suffers because of lack of ventilation, and then the CO rises, and so I need a little bit of ventilation to clean up the air. Now I did hear the contactor start, and so I can tell that the heater is on. So the CO2 stat, not CO, CO2 stat is ventilating the building, but it's cooling it down, of course, and then the heater is trying to make up the difference. And that's normal, completely normal. So back to what I wanted to show you. Here's my little sensor. It's not very high tech. It's just a little weather station thing. You can see it reads 1C. It's a lot colder than I would want it in here. There's nothing saying this is even calibrated. I have no idea. So I had moved it over here, set it on top of this little hive. I like to have it high so that it's, not going to just get cold air at the floor. But generally I have it sitting on this light here, just sitting up here. Okay, and that's where it was. Maybe sitting here would be okay. Maybe sitting here on top of this hive would be okay. But the reason I had it here was this is the bulb for the controller. This is what senses the temperature of the building. Now, that's the heater. Okay? So think what was going on the other day is the wind was blowing in under the doors, going out through the intake, because there's no control here. That's just a hole in the wall. There's screens, the bees can't get out, but so I think the cold air was blowing out through the intake here, and thus cooling this bulb and keeping the heater going. And the heater was overheating this little sensor But what doesn't make sense to me is the heater wasn't overheating this bulb, and the two were within 10 inches of each other. The sensor was sitting on top of this. So, regardless, the system's working the way it should, but it did get a little cool in here because of the wind blowing through. And just a note about getting cool in here. Cool is better than warm. The feed consumption goes up very gradually as the temperature drops, but the feed consumption goes up dramatically as the temperature rises, with 4C being the theoretical bottom lowest feed consumption temperature. So that's the whole theory behind why we target 4C. That's what the scientists tell us, that they'll eat the least amount of food. So you can hear that heater over here, right over here, shut off a moment ago. And then behind me, the ventilation fan started up. Because the CO has risen above 2,000. There's no real good definitive science behind where this needs to be. All of the science that I'm aware of states that the bees can withstand upwards of 80,000 parts per million. People cannot. If it was 80,000 parts per million in here and you entered the building, you would drop dead. I would drop dead. Well, you wouldn't because you're just watching the video, but I would. I'm actually here. And it wouldn't take 80,000. It would probably take on the order of 5,000 parts per million or less to kill me. The CO2 stat, I'm not concerned about carbon monoxide. This is not what I'm concerned with. The CO2 stat is there for my comfort and my safety. Okay, and that's it. Enough said. Because the building leaks enough that the CO2 would never rise beyond survivable limits by the bees. The box fans are here so that CO2 does not layer at the floor. Now, having said what I just said about CO2 levels, I don't know how necessary that is, but I don't want to kill all my bees to find out the hard way that it's necessary. So they just stir air and keep the air from layering in the various areas in the building. And the reason I've come in here today is, you can see I've taken my front insulation panels off the hives. These panels were screwed to the front of the hives. At least some of them. I didn't have them all on there. So I've taken them all off. In about 3 weeks, I will have a visit from an insurance adjuster who wants to check the state of my colonies. He wants to make sure my colonies are alive. I'm involved in an insurance program that will help compensate me if I have an extraordinary loss over the winter. And it's extraordinary and it's a help. It's certainly not a lucrative program, but it keeps a guy from losing his livelihood completely if he has some kind of disaster. Now, don't confuse that with farm insurance. If this building burns down or some other calamity that has nothing to do with beekeeping, all of these hives are insured. So I will get compensation from my farm insurance for that. The mortality insurance is if the bees die, or if half the bees die, then I'll get something that I can kind of start again. And having said that, that's why I took the panels off, because when the adjuster comes here, he will use an infrared camera to look at the colonies to see if they show a heat signature. And that's what I'm going to do here today. I'm going to have some fun with my little FLIR adapter on my smartphone, and I'm going to take some pictures of my stacks of hives here best I can, and see if they're living. I'll probably just show you still pictures here, so you can kind of see what I'm looking at, because I can't take video, or I'm not going to take video. The video, you can take video with it, is very choppy and it's not very nice to look at. So I'll just take some stills for you to see, and I just find it kind of interesting. I hope you do too. There you can see a few signatures from these hives. Now, there were quite a few that looked cold. It doesn't mean they're dead. Maybe mean they're not very big. Might mean they're dead. But ain't nothing I'm going to do about it now anyway. Oh, look at that. It recognized my face, so it changed the colors. Okay. Well, I'm just fussing, you know. It's just winter. That's what you do. You fuss in the bee barn. But I need to leave them alone. And I hope you found that a little bit interesting. I'll show you a little bit about the monitoring system, the Accurate. It's just a weather system. It's not really a monitoring system per se, but it works good for that. They've set it up for alerts, etc. I'll show you a little bit about that. So anyway, a lot of winter to go. So 7th of December, a couple more weeks before Christmas. Have a great day and have fun. So here's the output from that little sensor that I mentioned. So I'm kind of looking around the camera, but you can see here that in this range I've selected 7 days. In this range the high temperature was 6, and so that was the temperature that I was concerned with, and that happened here on the 5th of December. So the low temperatures have been 2. So this happened, the 2 degrees happened after I moved that sensor across the room. If I go to a 24-hour, we just get a flat line at 2 until today at 11:53 a.m. when I moved that sensor back across the room, and then I climb to 4. 4 is where I want to see it, so that's a good position for it, because that's going to let me know what that point in the room is reading. This sensor also gives me humidity. I'll go back to 7 days, and this also gives humidity. So the humidity has been running between 40 and 80%. You're going to ask me if that's good or bad. I don't know, and at this point I don't care. I do not control humidity. I don't monitor it because I want to monitor it. I monitor it because that little sensor monitors it. I don't look at it really. I have looked at it enough to know that it runs between 40 and 80%. And that's all I know, and that's all I care. So one of the nice things about this little system, I'll tell you, I'll just show you what this is. It's a weather system. It's Accurate weather system. And the really nice thing about this whole thing is you buy the components, you register with the manufacturer, and they give you a little portal like this online. There's no subscription fee for this. It's just given to you as a customer of the company. So I go to my dashboard. Okay, so here's a whole whack of information. This part at the top here is all information coming from the 5-in-1 weather station. I'll move that a little, you can see it better. So this is the 5-in-1 weather station that sits outside. It gathers various details, and I'll show you here what that is. That's what this is right here. Sits on a post, has your weather vane, there's a rain gauge here, wind speed, there's barometric pressure sensor in there, humidity sensor, all that kind of stuff. So it gives you all kinds of information from that. And you can see that this equipment really isn't hugely expensive. There's an American site, so there's a US prices. In Canada, you can buy this stuff either directly from Accurate or get it from Amazon. So you can see that I have these temperature sensors in my warming cabinet, in my bee barn, the one that we're talking about. So it shows me that's 4 degrees and 54% humidity. Also gives me that little graph. My wood shop, I have a couple of freezers, -21, -19. They sit in there to alert me if the door gets left open or anything like that. This gives you that little forecast. Actually, it says here, forecasting powered by dark sky. So I don't know exactly where that comes from. I don't know if it's my system or some other system. Anyway, doesn't matter. So the room sensor that I have in all these different places is just this one. And again, you know, it's $15.99. That's pretty cheap. Runs on a little AAA battery and does the job. They don't seem to be hard on batteries either. I don't change them very often. So what you need to make this whole thing work, if you're interested in doing this, what you need is the Accurate Access. The Access is the thing that takes all of the signals from the sensors and puts them on the internet, puts them on your little portal. So you need to buy that. That's your biggest ticket item, $135. So you need the access, then you need a sensor. Okay, that's all you need. You need the access, you need the sensor for. I put one of these in my incubator in the summer when I'm raising queens, so I can monitor that. But more than monitor, I'll show you another really nifty thing that helps out. You don't need the weather station. If you're into that kind of thing, that's fine. But you don't need the weather station to do what I'm doing in the bee barn, etc. You just need the access and however many sensors you want to use. And they have many different kinds of sensors. You can look around their site. One of the nicest things about this system are alerts. I'll click on alerts here and show you what I've been getting. So here I have an alert that is high temperature, bee barn is above 3 degrees. Now where this kicked in was when I moved my temperature sensor that had been reading low, 2C for example is about what it was reading. Then the temperature sensor reading started to rise. So then it crossed the 3 degrees threshold, and one of my alerts was triggered then at 3.2 degrees C at 1:21 p.m. So what happens with those is it kicks off an email to me, and it kicks off a text message to me. And you can set all kinds of different alerts. Temperatures above 2 degrees, temperatures below 2 degrees. So what I have is I'll have a pair of alerts. For a low temperature alert, I'll have temperatures below 2 degrees, and then I'll have a corresponding one that says temperatures above 2 degrees. And that's so that especially if I'm away from home and I get a text message that says bee barn temperature is below 2 degrees, it may only be another few minutes and I'll get another message saying temperature in bee barn is above 2 degrees. So then I know there's not a problem. It just dipped below for some reason and then back up. And that's more handy when I'm dealing with the higher temperatures. As noted, the higher temperatures are far more important than the low temperatures. So in settings, you go to alert rules to set up those alerts however you want, for whatever sensors, for whatever properties of those sensors. If it's a humidity thing or a temperature thing, you set what threshold you want, you set what you want to happen, all that kind of stuff. So the alert rules, again, is where you can set up the rules. Alert contacts is where you set up your email address, your text message, mobile number. And yeah, so, and you can clear these. There's no reason for me to keep these. I can just clear them and okay, and that gets rid of them. And that's about it for alerts. This is kind of a neat system. It's easy to put together. The range between the access and the sensors seems to be really good. My access and my bee barn sensors are not even in the same building, and the buildings are about 75 feet apart. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you that. I'm sure some people might be interested in. I keep talking about these sensors and alerts and notifications and all that kind of stuff. It's just really nice when there's a lot riding on that bee barn. There's a lot riding on keeping it warm and keeping it cool. Keeping it cool more than keeping it warm. That place should freeze solid and get pretty cold before things got desperate. But if things got too hot in there for any reason, maybe that fan breaks down or something, and it gets warm in there, I need to know about it. So I thought people might want to know kind of how I'm doing that. There's a lot of different ways, I'm sure, to do this. I happen to have this Accurate system already, so I just expanded it by buying another sensor or two, and it seems to have been working out really, really well.